John, we're going to talk NFL. But the college football playoffs, they've been pretty good, and they may be worth a little more than you've thought.
Totally. If all the semifinals were as good as this year's, they would be totally worth more.
Oh, boy.
And we're back. The Marchand and Ourand Sports Media Podcast. I'm Andrew Marchand, sports media columnist for the New York Post. He's John Ourand, the media reporter for the Sports Business Journal. And John, good to be with you again. As we go, let's just get right into it. Who's up and who's down?
Who's up? Who's down?
Well, my who's up goes to Scott Van Pelt from his performance on Monday night. I felt like ESPN really struggled in the immediate aftermath of the Damar Hamlin injury. I mean, on-air commentators, they looked like they were in shock. The channel broke for commercial many, many times. But finally, around 10:10, Scott Van Pelt came on, and he proved to be the perfect host for the moment. I mean, you think about sports-based analysts who historically have handled these types of stories on the fly, and your mind goes to people like Jim McKay or Bob Costas, Bryant Gumbel, Bob Lee. But I think on Monday night, Van Pelt showed that he should be on that list too.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about that. It's going to be the first topic. I'm going to do my who's up. Sean McDonough, who was on one of the semifinals, TCU's big win over Michigan to get to the championship. And McDonough just proved he's ESPN's best college football play-by-player. He is just up to the moment. He hits the big moments. We have our calls of the week later. And the thing about McDonough, and this is, I think, true, and this is where ESPN kind of gets in trouble when they have more studio guys like a Fowler, who's been doing play-by-play for a while, as compared to McDonough. They're just not as in rhythm with the game. McDonough has that. He didn't do great on Monday Night Football, but most play-by-players are better on college because you have upsets, because you're introducing players. The NFL is a little bit of a different rhythm in terms of how you call a game. And so I thought McDonough really shined during the semifinals of the national championships.
All right, let's go to who's down, Andrew. I'll take the first one. I'm going to give it to Andy Jassy of Amazon. And it's because about a year ago, when Amazon raised the price for its Amazon Prime by $20 a year, it claimed that one of the reasons for that nearly 20% increase was because of the price it was paying for Thursday Night Football. I mean, I was already a Prime member. I didn't ask for them to get Thursday Night Football. Well, fast forward to the Christmas holidays, Amazon floated a story to the information that it is looking into a standalone sports app that'll make me pay even more if I want to watch sports on Amazon. And I bet you that the cost of Prime isn't going to go down either. If Amazon moves forward with this app and the information says it could still decide to shelve it, it seems certain that it will cost even more to watch sports on Amazon, which makes me say, bring back the cable bundle, Andrew.
All right, listen, we got to talk about Amazon. I have some thoughts on what you just said, some information as well about what you just said, but let's put that in the topics. We'll get to that in a bit because Amazon just finished up their first season of Thursday Night Football, so we should put a bow on that. My who's down goes to the NFL. Look, we did a year preview last week, so this happened in that time where we kind of had a little break here. The NFL kept promoting the Franco Harris ceremony. It's going to be on NFL Network. We're going to show, in every game you watch, the 50th anniversary of Franco Harris's immaculate reception. Then, tragically, Harris died a couple of days before the ceremony. And this is what the NFL did during the ceremony. Let me just pick it up here with the clip.
Please turn your attention to the video board as we celebrate Franco Harris.
John, they went to commercial. Instead of showing the video tribute, they made such a big deal about everything, and that's what people were tuning into. You got to show the whole ceremony. That was a bad job. Another who's down for the NFL, double who's down for them. Red Zone, same problem this week. One game left. Raiders and 49ers go to overtime. A lot of us around the country did not have access. They said to go watch it on your local station. Problem is, it wasn't on most of our local stations. I don't know. They have to figure that out going forward. You pay for Red Zone. I get it contractually. That one last game, they want you to go to either CBS or Fox. But if you can't get it in your local area, I mean, what am I paying for? You want to see the end of that Raiders San Francisco game. So NFL double who's down for the NFL this week.
And that gets us into the first topic. It's really the only topic that's dominating news, not just sports media news. And it's Damar Hamlin. Again, we're taping this, Andrew, on Tuesday. It happened just on Monday night. So we don't know like how things have progressed as of yet. But we're a myopic sports media podcast. And let's talk about how the media covered it. You had a column that came out on Tuesday where you talked to Joe Buck, who was, of course, calling the game with Troy Aikman. Take me through what you found out from that conversation.
Yeah, Joe Buck was, in shock, like we all were. I thought his approach, less is more, is the right approach in that situation. There was nothing really to say at that point. Nobody wanted to see this man being given CPR, and ESPN wisely, of course, didn't show that, but Joe Buck and Troy Aikman knew what was going on, and Lisa Salters on the sideline. So how do you go? They went to break a number of times. I know you said in the opening you didn't think that was good. I think they're in a tough spot, right? Like what's the alternative? So that's my positive towards ESPN. I thought some of the reactions from some of our colleagues about how great the coverage was a little over the top. I thought Booger McFarland did very well. I thought Susie Colbert was fine and Schefter was fine, but I didn't think it was I don't know what the alternative was. They showed empathy towards someone who was possibly dying, which I don't really see what the other side of it would be. I guess they could have been insensitive. They could have speculated, which they didn't do, which was good. Like I said, it was fine coverage. There's nothing really wrong with it. I didn't think it was something necessarily exceptional. That said, I don't know if you can get an A. I think they're in a difficult spot. There's no information, and so you're kind of saying the same thing over and over. I thought they had Schefter on the air. I would like Schefter to tell me what the process going behind the scenes, especially when the topic of if the game was going to get postponed or not was going on. I wanted to know what the process was. And Don Van Natta, ESPN reporter, it was one of Pulitzer Prize. He tweeted out that it was up to Roger Goodell, citing a rule in the NFL rule book. I would like that information during the coverage, but it was okay. It wasn't bad. It was fine.
Yeah, I felt like the bar right now for ESPN is set really low, and I felt bad for Susie Colbert and Adam Schefter and Booger McFarland, because I thought that they were put in a situation that was very, very difficult, and there were times where, look, when they broke to commercial after the injury, of course that makes sense, and then several times Joe Buck and Troy Aikman threw it to commercial, and that made sense. But once you got it into the studio, and then you're throwing it to commercial because the three people on the set didn't quite know what to say, you're forcing me then to go to CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, all of which were commercial free. And they weren't really speculating, but they were talking to doctors. They would bring on, people like Bob Costas and other commentators about that. I mean, ESPN built its name as it's a 24-hour news service that when news happens, it's able to on a dime switch and turn it on and be able to cover it like a news event. And I don't feel like ESPN covered this initially like a news event until, as I said, for the Who's Up, Van Pelt came in and he started. By that point, ESPN had a couple of reporters down at the hospital. I think it was Coley Harvey was down there. Ben Baby was down there. He had Ryan Clark come on, and that interview with Ryan Clark, I thought was just spectacular. Every time they came on, it was just much watch television. I felt when Van Pelt had Lisa Salters on, he asked certain questions that brought out more information than Lisa Salters gave 15 to 30 minutes before when Joe Buck threw it to her. So I was expecting a little bit more from ESPN a little bit sooner than it was. I think that when Scott Van Pelt came on, he righted the ship and then it became then it became must-see TV. They went commercial-free all the way through. I don't know how long it went commercial-free, but that I was a little bit surprised that it took them that long to do it.
Okay, so I was a little more positive on their coverage. And see, so here's the thing. It's easy when we're critics, right, to say, well, they should have done this. My thing to you would be what should they have done, right? Because you don't want to speculate, right? Joe Buck did say, they went to commercial break, I think twice. And after the third one, I think they were discussing probably what they should do. Joe Buck said that Hamlin was receiving CPR. At that point, we all know it's dire. And there's not much to say, but you can't like leave coverage, right? Yeah, you could have had maybe some experts. I think the big thing they didn't really tell us was just in terms of some of the factual things about the information, which, that's where you think Schefter would say that. In Schefter's defense, he's on the air. It's hard to report on the air. I mean, he's texting usually on, transactions. So like this is more sensitive. So they're hurt a little bit, by having a little bit of a smaller group. Sometimes they have, they're on site. And so Steve Young and RG3 is there. And so I think they're hurt a little bit by that because I think you want Schefter or someone making calls and the league, you would think we get the word to them. And the league, that became an issue with Troy Vincent saying they never said the 5-minute thing, which is really hard to believe, quite honestly, because number one, John Perry was the one who got the information from the league. That's what Joe Buck told me. So how could he get that wrong? Now, there possibly could have been a miscommunication, but let's just say there wasn't. And then secondly, you see Joe Burrow warming up. That's number two. And then thirdly, and to me, most importantly, if they had it wrong, the whole NFL is watching. Wouldn't you say something quicker and tell Joe Buck and Trey, no, that's not true. They never said anything until they saw the reaction of people being like, how could they have even thought about that? And in the NFL's defense, I think it's easy for all of us. And I tweeted about it. I thought they should postpone the game. Initially I thought, unless you find out Hamlin's okay, then you have to postpone the game. But if you, in light of like how things transpired, even at that point, like, has half an hour in, it's like, no, you can't play. But the NFL is dealing with the actual logistics of everything and getting the crowd out of the stadium, trying to figure out what they're going to do with the players. Can they play tomorrow? Which I know sounds insensitive, but they have to think about these things, logistically. So, but ultimately I thought, Buck, again, I don't like, I've given Joe Buck credit. Like, I hate this. Like, we give announcers credit for not talking. It kind of seems a little illogical, these big money announcers. But I do think in those circumstances, I think being Joe Buck and having that gravitas to be able to have silence. I think if it was someone else who's less experienced, I think that silence might come across as like not knowing what to say, instead of saying like the pictures are telling the story. You see Josh Allen with his hands on his nose and tears in his eyes, and this is a grave situation.
Yeah, and my criticism is not at all directed to individual people. It was clear that everybody in the immediate aftermath was in shock, and that's sort of how it came off. My criticism is based on just comparing ESPN to CNN's coverage and to MSNBC's.
What did CNN? So I didn't watch ESPN. I was stuck on ESPN. I didn't move from my couch for like an hour and a half. I mean, like everyone else, stunned watching this and just hoping for the best.
CNN basically they had an anchor. I didn't get her name. They actually were showing clips of the hit and the aftermath of the hit many times. ESPN showed it one time and never.
Which is the right call. ESPN showed it twice. CNN showed it multiple times. Which is the right decision.
And then they had
wait, John, which is the right decision? So you're liking the CNN. I think it's insensitive. You can't show that over and over. If social media if you want it, you can find it easily on social media. And you're going to say, well, then I have to turn to social media.
If I were running a news organization and I'm handling a news event, I think I would be showing. I wouldn't be glorifying it, but I think that it's a legitimate video to show. I think I would I would
In
opt
real
for
time, you're not sure if the man's going to survive.
real
As
time
we tape
on
this, we're not positive.
real time on ESPN. I absolutely would have made that decision because it's a football telecast and there's a
The man might
long
have
history.
died. I don't know, man.
If I'm with CNN, at some point, I would expect that. I don't know the answer to this question.
I mean, look, could they have come back and shown it with a disclaimer before? That's possible. But I will say it feels gratuitous to do that. That's my opinion. Like I get it. If you're CNN, you got to show it once or twice because you have a new audience.
CNN showed it. CNN showed it much more than once or twice. CNN made it feel gratuitous in how they showed it. I wouldn't have done what they did. Certainly not during the sort of 9 o'clock hour when things were still there were still a lot of questions.
So I just think that look. I think ESPN overall, I thought Booger McFarland did a good job calling.
Agreed. Totally agree. Yeah.
Calling for, but like, I think we also, when these things happen, like some of the reaction to me, again, they did a fine job. It was fine, but it wasn't like, wow, this was amazing coverage because there wasn't much to it, which less is more. Like, I'm not saying like, I don't want them speculating. I don't want them telling them, I don't want you to be gratuitous. I want you to realize that this is a human being. Like, this isn't a football player. It's a human being. Forget he's a football player. This is a human being who just collapsed. I don't know if we need to see it over and over again. And they didn't speculate, which was good. I thought they could have had a little more information. That's where I think where you're correct. Like, again, was it terrible? No, but a little more information. What's the process here? What should they be doing? Who's making the decision? Is it ultimately Roger Goodell's decision? How's it work with the teams? Is it in the officials' hands? And I think they did say some of that. They did say it's the league. I believe it's in their hands. But that's the stuff that I thought you got to stick to the facts and what you know. And I don't think, like, again, it just, they got a little unlucky, I think, because of how the staffing was after New Year's. I don't really want Schefter's opinions. I want Schefter's information. Again, I'm not crushing him for that, but that's something I prefer.
And I will say this. I think that ESPN's coverage after 10 p.m., when all of a sudden they had a legitimate host that was directing and asking the right questions, I thought it was excellent.
We'll move on. I want to defend the NFL people for a little bit because it's easier. Look, Van Pelt's excellent. We both like Van Pelt, and he did a very good job. Ryan Clark did an excellent job as well. However, it's easier when you have an hour to think about everything, to read what people are saying online, to get your thoughts together. Susie, again, they're professionals. This is the top. This is the major leagues. No, they're getting graded as the major leagues. But Susie Colbert's coming on thinking she's doing a halftime show. And then it probably was about 10, 15 minutes after it happened. You're going on with no information. It's much hard. And I thought she did fine. It's much harder than Scott Van Pelt coming on an hour later.
Look, I thought Susie Susie Colbert did a good job. I think that what Scott Van Pelt brought out is he's done radio for decades, and he's used to talking in a live environment. He's used to asking the right kind of questions or meandering to those questions. And that kind of background and that kind of experience is what really comes to the fore in situations like that, I think.
We agree largely, but I just think that
we're disagreeing on the edges here, it sounds like.
On the edges, I also think you're not giving enough credence. Again, I grade these people like it's the major leagues because it is. It's ESPN, it's Monday Night Football. So they're graded like it's the major leagues. And that's why I said it was fine, not amazing. It was fine.
You stuck with ESPN as a viewer that wanted information. I immediately, on a commercial break, I went to CNN.
Well, what information did you get from them?
Nothing, in fact, but it felt like I was they were citing ESPN's reports on CNN, but it just felt more immediate because they weren't breaking to commercial. It was, and they just were, it's a sort of breaking news the way that TV networks do breaking news.
Yeah, look, I would say the bigger, maybe ESPN isn't as set up as they once were with ESPN News, etc. That was
obvious. Yeah,
that's where they weren't just able to just flip a switch like they did back in the day and be able to really kind of have all hands on deck, because it really was just the three, Susie Colbert, Booger McFarland, and Adam Schefter, and then they go to Buck Aikman and Lisa Salters, throughout as well. but I don't know if there's that much to say. That's the only thing. I think you're like kind of giving credit for saying nothing to CNN.
I'm giving credit for not breaking for commercials after they went to the set. Not again, this is like, like 20 minutes afterwards, and you're coming back for 5 minutes and then breaking for commercials that included
nothing to say. I mean, the thing is, they had nothing to say. All right, look, we said enough on this topic. Unless you want a lot of final thought, or no, you're good.
No, let's go to topic 2.
All right, topic 2, Google NFL Sunday Ticket. When this story broke, from the morning on, we were both pursuing it, didn't get full confirmation. Want to give credit, Trip Mickle of New York Times. He's the one who first mentioned Google. To me, that's where the story is broken. When you're the one who mentions this first happening, right? Like that's where, like, who puts it across the finish line. A lot of times it's just, sometimes it's legit and sometimes it's just somebody helping you out. But they were the first to mention Google and NFL Sunday Ticket. So John Ourand, this is your expertise. What do you make of this deal? $2 billion per year, right? That's the number. What do you make about this?
From our first podcast that we did, probably like, what was that, 16 months ago, this has been topic 1, Sunday Ticket. Where's it going to go?
Not topic 1, but a topic. Maybe your topic 1.
We finally have an answer. It's going to Google YouTube. They're paying upwards of probably $2.3 billion, close to $2.5 billion a year for the rights to this. And if you want winners and losers,
I do. I give it to me. Winners.
The NFL.
Yep. Got their money.
DirecTV. Amazon.
Hold on. NFL
Disney.
got their money. Hold on a second. I got to break it down for the people. NFL got their money, winner.
NFL got their money.
DirecTV is a winner because why?
DirecTV has been losing a boatload of money every year. DirecTV tried to get out of this deal like 2 years ago at $1.5 billion, and the NFL couldn't find anybody to get them out of the deal. DirecTV,
right, so they're winners because they got out. All right.
Yes.
Who's next? Next one.
Disney is next.
Disney. Okay.
Yes.
Why are they winning?
Because they didn't get this package, Andrew.
That's just terrible. Oh God, yeah. I got a feeling.
Another one.
You too, Google. You guys are going loserville.
Amazon is a winner because Amazon, by the way, for the first time, Amazon showed some fiscal restraint and held back. I find this to be one of the most overhyped packages that's out there. One of the complaints that DirecTV always had is, the NFL launched NFL Red Zone. So, like, if you want a low cost Sunday Ticket package, just buy cable and get NFL Red Zone. They've started stripping away how many European games we have. We now have international games that are not part of Sunday Ticket. We have NFL Saturday games late in the season that are not part of Sunday Ticket. We have a full slate of Thursday night games that go to Amazon. That's not part of Sunday Ticket. Sunday Ticket is a great package for displaced Jaguars fans, Lions fans.
Hold on a second. There's no displaced Jaguars fans.
That's my point exactly. I live in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
I think I could have seen, I didn't keep count, but I could have seen all but 2 Dallas Cowboys games. Like, why would, so if I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Well, I'm a Steeler fan.
They're a popular team. So the most popular teams you can see on
national TV. If they're good,
anyway.
I'm going to see them, right? Steelers have made a resurgence now. They got on Sunday Night Football. Next week, you got Red Zone. I'll be able to watch enough. I got to pay attention to the Jets, Dolphins. I got to pay attention to Bills, Pats. And so.
So you are, Andrew, you are a Steelers fan.
Yeah.
Living in New York. Have you ever subscribed to Sunday Ticket?
Yes, I used to have it.
When did you give it up?
When they wouldn't give it to me like for free, basically. I said, forget you, I'm taking this thing down. And that was it. Like, I used to call every year, and I wasn't covering this. I was covering the Yankees. I used to call every year. When I first got married, I told my wife, I need Sunday Ticket. I need the NFL package. But I used to get it for like $100. Like, whatever. I get some deal where it's like totally discounted. And then one year they said no, and I said, all right, forget it, I'm out. I kept, you do that thing, you look at, you say you're going to cancel, and then they give it to you at the end. And I did it, and they just said no. And I said, all right, take this thing down. And then you have the stupid satellite on your house, and you want to get rid of that.
When you gave it up, did you miss it?
No, I gave it up also because it didn't make sense, right? kids running around, not doing this job. Steelers on a lot, miss it a lot. And it's expensive. And I'm not paying $300 for it. That's the thing. So if YouTube, the way it's set up for people who don't know, if you have YouTube, you can get it through your YouTube TV. But then they're also going to have add-ons, so you don't even need YouTube TV. So basically, it's not going to add any people to YouTube TV, correct?
That's still to be determined. I would think that
if there's a discount, I guess, right?
Yeah, they would be able to get into the it's a whole Amazon and paper towels discussion that we have. If you're watching stuff on YouTube TV, are you more inclined to then subscribe to YouTube TV? But the contracts with the NFL that Fox and CBS have mandate that this keeps a premium price, and that they don't take a ton of subscribers / viewers away from those Sunday afternoon packages, where they're both paying more than $2 billion a year for those packages.
So will it cost $300?
It would. I would expect Google YouTube hasn't said yet. I would expect that it would be right in that neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, and so there's not. I agree. It's not a great pack. It seems like, all right, you could sell to more people than DirecTV, so maybe there are more people. The problem is that you're going to lose all the DirecTV customers who, in theory, are older, right? Who've had DirecTV for a long time, had Sunday Ticket for a long time. Now, some of them might come over, but some of them, I think there's a better chance that, what do they say they have, 1.5 million or whatever, that's the real number, is 1.5 million, even though the NFL, I think, was saying 2 million. But the NFL would only tell you the truth on those. The 1.5 million is what I think it really is. And so how many of those people will come over to YouTube? Even if they get half, you only had 750,000. Now you got to build up that, or is there another 750,000 just to get to 1.5 million? Maybe, but I don't know if you're selling a million of these, because you're right. You get a lot of if you get a lot of your team's games, and it's expensive. Not everyone's loaded.
So there are a lot of fans that are really excited that it's now off of DirecTV at a place where they can now subscribe to it, because it's going to be available, via streaming. And I think the sticker shock when that comes out is there's going to be a whole new round of stories just about how expensive this is. And I'm skeptical that there are going to be enough fans that are going to want to subscribe to this when they have Red Zone and when the most popular teams are on national TV all year long.
And so Google, YouTube, John Ourand, they are losers in your mind.
I am surprised when we heard that Apple pulled out. I'm surprised that there was somebody in line that was paying more than $2 billion for this package. Yes.
Yeah, how about Apple? We'll get to them more, but that now what happens for Apple in sports? MLS or bust? That's it? Or NBA, I guess.
Well, NWSL, maybe the NBA. But Apple, like Amazon, it has a global platform. And so, there are lots of rights everywhere that they could try to.
I got it, but are they real? We want them to be real players. That's what we're talking about here. This is about, are you competing with ESPN and Fox and NBC and CBS, et cetera, Turner? I don't know. Apple, we'll see how this MLS deal. Messi seems like he's not coming now. Maybe another year at least for Messi. So I don't know about that. I don't know about that deal. I wanted Messi there. I liked a little more when maybe Lionel Messi's coming with his World Cup title and greatest player of all time title. But without him, I don't know. Maybe we'll have to get to that. Let's talk about Amazon though in the sports app.
Yeah, you gave a great teaser earlier. I'm dying to hear what you know about the sports app.
All right, the information reported that this could happen. So I've been told that they've talked about it, not definitely happening. The big question to me, all right, look, if they make a sports app, who cares, right? If they're not charging you more, right? Like if they make a sports app, that makes a lot of sense to me, because if you're going to bring in all these rights, you're starting some shows, then there's one place to get your sports. If you're not charging me extra, wait, why are you shaking your head?
Who cares? Every single league cares. You're putting
No, one second. I didn't say who cares. I'm saying if you're not charging me extra, then it's not really a big deal. So they're going to have another app that I could just get all my Amazon sports on. Why wouldn't that be a good thing? That's what they do, and it makes there's less clutter. If you're just looking, you love their new shows that that I wrote about. I can't really name any of them at the moment, but
How come we haven't done a review of any of those shows yet?
I gotta watch them. But I do think they get lost on Amazon Prime Video. And if you have just a sports app, you like one of them, and then you kind of go from there.
Look, I go back to the early days of cable. What they're proposing is essentially a sports ghetto, and it's a place where if you're a hardcore sports fan, you're going to go there and watch it. One of the attractions, I think, of Prime is that you can get people that are casual sports fans. Or
why can't you still get those people?
You have to download a separate app.
But they're still going to put the stuff. Hold on a second. Again, this isn't done, even close to done from what I'm told. And so, but let's just say they do that. You don't think they're going to continue to have the Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime Video? Of course, they'll still be available.
According to the information, they're trying to declutter Amazon Prime, so they're going to take it off of Prime and put it on the app.
That would make no sense if that's correct. And listen, if you're listening to Amazon, and I know you are, don't do that. You got to keep the stuff. By the way,
my information is based solely on that information report.
All right, but here's the thing. All right, here's my point. Okay, if they're charging extra for their sports now, then your Who's Down makes sense. But if they're not charging extra and they're just making another app that I have to go to get Thursday Night Football, and it's also on Amazon Prime Video, which I can't imagine it won't be. It's almost impossible for me to think that's even possible. All right, it's going to be on Amazon Prime Video. I'd be absolutely shocked. We're going to make this dinky new app, and that's the only way you're going to get Thursday Night Football, when you can't turn on an Amazon product any day of the week without Thursday Night Football being shoved in your face when I'm trying to buy some paper towels.
I think it's so cute that you think they're going to launch a sports app, and there's no path for them to actually start charging consumers.
No. I didn't say they won't charge. I'm saying until they do, I don't think it matters. Until we know they're charging extra. If they're charging extra, you got me. Who's down?
All right. Okay. The key for me is already, if you're going to Amazon Prime, you're already losing an audience off of broadcast TV. If they take it off of Amazon Prime and put it on the sports app, that's a disaster. We both agree with that.
Okay,
if it's
so hard.
If it stays on Amazon Prime,
we're getting a little flimsy here on our criticism, though, because I can't imagine they're going to take their sports off of Amazon Prime Video.
The story said that they needed to declutter Prime, though. That was the whole point of it.
If that happens, all right, then Who's Down? They'll get my Who's Down. Trust me. They'll get my Who's Down.
What? We're making the cardinal sin that we vowed never to do. We're debating something that we actually don't know the answer.
We don't know if that's going to happen. Well, you gave a Who's Down, so I mean, I wanted to. So I think that's a Who's Down maybe, but if they charge, it's a Who's Down. You're going to charge me extra already over my $140 a year.
And if it stays on Amazon Prime, I'll retract that Who's Down publicly.
A retraction. We might need
retract. How about that?
Chris Mason's already getting his little what he's going to use for a sounder there. Get him all ready. He's put his hands together.
I'll find it.
I'm retracting that it was ever offered. I retract your retraction.
I'll find another Who's Down for Amazon. Don't worry.
He's going to get a retraction. All right. Let's see. All right. Last thing. College football playoffs. Then we get the call of the week, and then we call it a show. College football play. I think, look, there's some great advertisements. Those are some great games. You told me that these games are always uncompetitive, and that these new games are going to be terrible. We had two tremendous games. Now, it's been about 15, 16 years since the first time it's happened, but still, good time. If you're going to negotiate, you've had some tremendous games.
I still think the new games that they're talking about bringing out, where all of a sudden they bring up Boise State to Tuscaloosa. I mean, that's going to be a blowout. I don't
want Boise State to play Alabama, because you always say that. I'm going to send this clip to them. They could play it.
Alabama, Boise State, that might be competitive, but Boise State down to Tuscaloosa, that'll be tough. The semifinals this year, that's everything ESPN wanted. I mean, if all the semifinals were this competitive, they'd be plenty happy with it. I put out a tweet, Andrew, on New Year's Day. My wife is going through her New Year's resolutions. She was like, let's cut the cord. Let's just get rid of cable. And I just looked at her. I was like, this is after the whole month, I was stuck on ESPN watching bowl game after bowl game after bowl game. Like, of all times to talk about cutting the cord, this could be possibly the worst times. I think the bowl games and the way ESPN has them set up, where they're every single night, During the weekends, they're all through the day, and you got to get to ESPN to watch it. Is pretty unique.
Well, tell your wife that ESPN's going to direct to consumer by the end of next year at the latest, maybe into this year. We'll see what happens.
By the way, Mike Soltis was lobbying for her to be my Who's Down based on that, that recommendation. So
yeah, I don't know if that'd be a good move for.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen.
That's not a good. That would not be a good decision. So that was a good job by you going with Andy Jassy instead. All right, calls of the week.
Call of the week.
All right, Andrew, we talked about the college football semifinals. We had some great plays ending both games of the semifinals. Let's go to TCU, Michigan, and your Who's Up, Sean McDonough.
Trouble with the snap. It's picked up. Lateral to Edwards. He laterals it forward. And Loveland is tackled. And that will do it. An ugly last play for Michigan.
All right, and then we have, of course, as the ball was dropping, it's coming up on midnight, the end of the Georgia-Ohio State game, and Chris Fowler.
For the win and a spot in the national championship game. It's on the way. No good. He hooked it. And Georgia is going to survive. At the stroke of midnight, the first few seconds of 2023, Ohio State falls one kick short.
Andrew, I like those as our calls of the week. Less about the calls, which I thought were both fine, and more what an exciting night of college football that was for ESPN.
Totally. I mean, the TCU game, I saw TCU Michigan. I was like, I'm not really that into this, right? And I do think college football, they still, I don't know how you figure it out, but there's a rhythm lost, right? I get for the huge college football fan, maybe it's not. I'm a college football fan, but not a huge college football fan. I went to Ithaca Division III, so I don't have a school. It's a little different for me. But I feel like there's like lacking momentum when you finally get to these games, even for the national championship coming up Monday. Sort of just like, I don't know, it lacks the rhythm that the season has. When you get to them, but then 14-0 quickly. And I'm like, oh, I'm into this game. All right. I'm not playing games, told the family, not playing any, board games or what we're going to do. I'm watching these games now. Sorry.
Wait, what's a board game at the
Yeah, they like it on New Year's. You play some board games.
Yeah. What's your board game of choice?
Oh, my board game of choice is not playing them, but that's another story. I don't really like it. I sometimes do it, but I don't really enjoy them. They like it. My wife loves, she has every board game, Donut Man. Anyway, but I'm not a big board game guy. You like, what's yours?
We played dominoes over the weekend. Mexican train dominoes, it's called.
Wow.
So,
if I had to go all time, I'll go Monopoly. I mean, when the Candyland's probably, that's about my speed.
Candyland.
All right, give us a review.
Queen Frostine getting a shout out by Andrew Marchand. Love that.
All right, give us a review, please. Say something nice, stars, and follow us, and we appreciate it. As always, AC Wyatt, Chris Mason, Ross Nethery are all responsible for this pod every week. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.